Welcome to the In Chamber, the place where we focus on the issues and people that shape business success. I'm your co-host, Rebecca Patrick. I'm the Senior Vice President of Communications for the Indiana Chamber of Commerce. Joining me at the microphone today is Anthony Shutley, our Director of Communications. In Chamber is presented by the Talent Resource Navigator. Today, we are chatting with John Wechsler, who is a serial entrepreneur and lifelong Hoosier. He is perhaps best known for launching the innovative co-working space Launch Fishers in 2010 and the Indiana IoT Lab in 2017, which is a test bed for all types of Internet of Things. John recently left his position as CEO of those two organizations to launch Spokenote, which he describes as, quote, the digital equivalent of the Post-it note or the sticky note of the TikTok age. John, thank you for chatting with us today.
Thank you for having me.
As I noted, you're the founder of the IoT Lab and Launch Fishers in Hamilton County. How difficult was it for you to step away from those two operations you launched? Do you continue to have any kind of stake in either of those?
Well, yeah, great question. And we are celebrating the 10th anniversary here this month of the Indiana IoT Lab, Launch Fisher's creation, and then the Indiana IoT Lab, as well as the Fisher's Test Kitchen. And, when you do something for that long, obviously you're doing it more than likely because of it's more than a job, right? And I really poured everything I had into the entrepreneurial ecosystem building, not only in Fishers, but statewide. We created the Indiana Co-working Passport. We had the Launch Indiana program. We had Fail Fest. I mean, there were a ton of programs that we created over that decade. And so it was very hard to wrap my mind around the idea of doing something different. And it really was going to take a big idea or a big effort for me to do that. I will say the thing that made it easier was knowing we had a team in place that was prepared to kind of take it to the next level. And so with David Bowling, who I've worked with for decades, kind of at the helm, we plan to reshuffle the deck really around him and Rachel as key components and really scale the organization from there. I will serve on the board of directors. And so I'm advising and kind of helping transition. And longer term, it'll be their next decade to write. And I'm happy to hand it off to them.
Looking back at the IoT Lab specifically, it was certainly on the leading edge in terms of facilities of its type. In your view, what would you say were its successes, and are there any failures or things that maybe could have been done a little bit better?
Oh, I mean, look, if we counted our failures, I don't think we'd ever get through a podcast or an interview for what you're doing next. So we absolutely learn every day. I would say our successes have a wider aperture when we look at this kind of stuff, right? I mean, it's when you're in the business of ecosystem building and development of kind of that next generation of entrepreneur. You don't measure those in weeks, months, or even years. Sometimes, we used to always joke. Mayor Fadness had this idea that you measure projects in years, you measure a vision in decades, and we set out to create the vision of an entrepreneurial city. And I will say that as we are a decade into it now, between both Launch Fishers and the IoT Lab, we've seen hundreds of millions of dollars in M&A transactions and venture investment, and we've seen thousands of jobs directly attributable to the companies that have started there. And so while the IoT Lab is a smaller scale, it's half the physical size of Launch Fishers. I'd say it punches above its weight class on its impact when you look at things like autonomous vehicles and next generation systems for communication or video or doorbells and speaker systems and things that are being created there. You will see in every household in the country and around the world at some point. It's a little longer term arc.
The pandemic certainly has changed things for workers and workspaces, turned things upside down. What does the future look like for places like Launch Fishers and other co-working spaces?
Yeah, it's funny because I think it's a little counterintuitive. We're a little counter cyclical to economic trends in that when times get tough, and businesses look to right size or scale their footprint, they still need places for their teams to gather. They still need places to have their team meetings. They want to celebrate. They want to, strategize and plan. And that really plays in, quite frankly, to the flexible work environments like Launch Fishers and the 60 other locations on the Indiana coworking passport. Those places are now kind of the lifeblood or the lifeline to these companies that want to give up bigger, expensive offices and move into a more flexible work environment. So we are 100% completely across the board full on all real estate. So, I mean, I don't know that we could have said that ever in the first 10 years, but, the pandemic drove some really interesting space dynamics, real estate dynamics for companies. And I mean, we have not missed a beat, I will tell you.
What impact has those two facilities had on Hamilton County?
Well, I'll first, speak to those numbers again. When you look at somewhere on the order of a half a billion, 500, 600 million in venture investment and M&A transactions, that in its own right is noteworthy and significant. Then you roll into thousands of jobs that we can point to that were created within these companies, and then start going into kind of the larger inspirational things that we hope that we're hitting, and that is creating a platform for entrepreneurs, first timers, and serial entrepreneurs to do their thing. So you take an entrepreneur like Santiago Jaramillo, who started Blue Bridge, which became Amplify, which then was sold to 15.5. And you look at that progression in his journey as an entrepreneur, and then realize that he is not even, I don't think Santiago is even 30 years old. And you say to yourself, wow, he's got a lot of runway left as an entrepreneur. And then you look at somebody like Brent Oakley, who started, Vibenomics, recently closed a $12 million venture round. It's our hope that by investing in the ecosystem that makes entrepreneurship and innovation flourish, those serial entrepreneurs will continue to choose Fishers as their launching point and the place where they want to grow, where they want to live, where they want to play, and that leads to this entrepreneurial, smart, vibrant city that is Fishers, Indiana. And so, our aspirations are well beyond just the economic development dashboard. They really focus more on what makes Fishers a strong community and what's going to pave the way for the next generation.
I want to talk to you a little bit about public policy and Indiana's entrepreneurial and innovative climate. How would you characterize Indiana's entrepreneurial landscape today?
I'd say the entrepreneurial landscape is still pretty strong, and I would say, just like the comment I made, you can be dealt a really good hand, but you still have to play it well. And so, I would say if I see any challenges, it's in how we meld the varied interests of where we think Indiana should go as a state on all things policy. And I sometimes it's really challenging when the interests of others in the state compete with those of the innovation economy, let's say. And when you look at companies like the ones we're talking about, ranging from Salesforce and AT&T down to what I call the seediest of seed stage startups, they really rely on talent. And it's important that we realize that our economic future really hinges on how well we attract talent and retain talent in the state. And so sometimes they're not always tech policies that make the difference, like the venture capital investment tax credit. Fantastic tool that the state has given us, and it's maxed out every single year, and it's something that's really good. But then there are other things that might drift more into the social realm, or the Roe versus Wade decision, or other things like that that really I think make a difference, good or bad. Right, our policy decisions there will impact future decisions by others to move, stay, relocate in or out of our state, and that's probably the realization that I don't think we're quite there yet on.
It's real easy to criticize lawmakers and policymakers, but I think one area where Indiana lawmakers earn high marks is their efforts to make this a business friendly community. It seems like anyway, to me. They've exempted the sales tax for software as a service and various steps to increase access to the venture capital investment tax credit. Those are just two examples. So what steps and public policy in particular have helped the most?
I think, as referenced, the VCI tax credit is a huge deal. Bumping that amount up, and then putting the enhancer on for minority women and the MBE class, right, plus veterans, I think is a fantastic enhancement to that program. The venture capital tax credit, for those that might not be aware of it, de-risks the decision of an Indiana investor to invest money in a high growth startup by giving them a tax credit, right? It's 25 to 30%, depending on the ownership of the company. And they get that money right back, the investor does, on their taxes. So if you make a $25,000 investment, into a company, and you're going to get back, on the order of a $7,500 tax credit, let's say, on your taxes, you've immediately de-risked that decision. That makes capital flow into startup investments, and it helps the entrepreneurial community. So I think that's been probably one of the very best. I would, that's probably where I'd hang my hat. I think stuff like that, the direct policies that impact startups and capital formation, it's huge. I would say, yeah, that's it. I had one other thought, but we'll stop there for time.
Speaking of criticism, here's your chance, John. Where, if you want to look at it that way, where is there work still to be done?
Yeah, I think, look, like you, I mean, it's certainly easy to criticize, and I wouldn't say that I'm a critic of. I think our leadership, executive branch, legislative, we've got great leadership there. I think we need to bring others along. And I would say, if I were going to coach, advise, or try to lead someone along to a better way of doing this, I'd say we need to hear more voices and listen to more people before we jump quickly into decision making. And that probably would be the way I would characterize this, no matter where you come down on the issue, right? I think it's important to make sure that everybody is heard, and to make sure that we are making this. It's not even about the actual item that you're making the decision on. It's about the process by which you get there. And so I'd like to see that process opened up a little bit more dialogue, a little more time. I think that the bigger tent we can pitch, the more we can bring people into decision making and work with all in that process. I think that ends up making the outcome better for all. Even if the decisions would be the same, you may end up at the same decision even. But the idea that we steamroll sometimes issues through, and it just, must, I think, include other thoughts and get others involved in some of that decision making in order to really do it best.
We've been hearing a lot about Indiana's growth as a tech hub. There seems like there's been reams written about that. A lot of it focused on software companies here in town. But more recently, we've been hearing about how the state is poised to become a hard tech hub. What do you think about Indiana's status in that area?
I see the opportunity. When the Intel announcement was made, with Ohio not long ago, my first thought was we need to figure out how we load up the east side of the state to just, to engage as much as we can there. There are no hard boundaries that would keep us from engaging as suppliers and supporting entities for an effort like that. When you start talking about tens of billions of dollars of economic investment in a neighboring state, there's going to be a ripple effect that will radiate out just in concentric rings, right? It's not even going to stop at the state border, at the state line. And so I think we have a really unique opportunity there. I think we are uniquely positioned with our research institutions and our engineering capability in state. When I talk to my friends that are active in things like this, I'm very encouraged by not only our platform, where we're starting, but the resolve and the interest in leading here. And the one thing I am certain of, that if we all align on the right initiatives and we all kind of connect, there's not a whole lot that's going to keep us from achieving our goals. And I think that's an achievable one. It's very realistic, and it would be impactful for generations.
Are there any other areas, John, that we haven't talked about where you think Indiana is making progress in terms of the tech space, or any areas where we should be focusing on?
Um, I think back to the comments on policy, sometimes there's not an immediate line connection between an issue and why it matters. One thing that really concerns me in our state, and I mean, it's dire. It's not even like, gee, I think this is a problem. I think this is a failure point for the state. Is our spending on public health? When we look at a state that is half of the median across the country, and 50th out of 50 or 48th or 49th, you look at different numbers, and I look at that and I think, we're not bringing everybody along in this Hoosier dream, in the American dream. And by the way, the numbers are staggeringly small. $50 a person, and you say to yourself, wow, $50 per Hoosier is what we spend on public health on average. And what would it take? We could easily double that. We could triple that, and launch ourselves at least north of the midway point, right? I'm not talking about leadership where we have to be the number one or two or three, but for goodness sake, if we are 50th, 49th, or 48th, we will not be a place that everybody wants to come to. And quite frankly, many will leave. Hoosiers are dying earlier and earlier. The last 7 years, those numbers have decreased. So when you look at now, I think we're just under 3 years has been removed off of life expectancy at birth over the last 7. So, if you look at the number of people that die early, and that their health throughout their life, we are lagging, and in a big way. And I think that really harms the entire state, not those affected only, but those that live in the community with them, because we have to financially carry that load. We have to morally, ethically, and as a community, help bring them along. And I just think that ties to this entrepreneurial story, because I don't think it's only government that leads us out of this, right? I mean, we could do it. We could start. We could make a down payment right now on boosting that public health spending. But at the same time, creating more wealth by creating more innovation-driven enterprises that sell to the world and bring money back to our state and then circulate it around our communities. That is how you create the wealth and the tax base that can then fuel this ongoing. And so I think it's a public and private duty to try to solve this, but I think the state should take the lead on beginning to spend there, and that will help us attract more people that want to get into innovation, and then lead to more companies, which leads to more revenue, more profit, more exit, shareholder value, et cetera.
Definitely. And the public health situation, it really is a crisis in many ways. And I know the report that was just released from the governor's um, public health commission outlined the disparities that exist, from the healthiest county, if you will, to the least healthiest county. And I believe it's 9 years, the life expectancy difference, which is pretty significant. So we're encouraged by some of those recommendations, and the chamber is going to be involved leading up to the session to try to weigh in on some of those proposals that we expect to be announced in 2023.
Well, I'm willing to lean in with you guys on that one. I really believe that it's a moral shortcoming of ours. We've got to fix it. I think it has very significant economic impact, and it is a crisis. I think that's the right word.
Now, a quick word about our sponsor. The Talent Resource Navigator is a new free online tool that offers the convenience of one-stop shopping for education and job training opportunities. Supported by on-demand customer service and technical assistance, the Navigator intentionally guides and connects individuals and employers with a tailored set of talent development resources based on each user's identified needs. Details at talentresourcenavigator.com. As noted earlier, John, your most recent venture is Spokenote. As I understand it, Spokenote provides a way to place a small sticker embedded with a video code onto letters, products, or really just about anything else. Expand on that and take us through how it actually works.
Yes, so thank you. We're super excited to launch Spokenote. It is, as you said, the digital equivalent of the sticky note. And so that's a construct that most people can understand, because about 50 billion of those are sold every year, right? So we all know what it's like to take something off of a pad or out of a package, write a note on it, and then leave it for someone as a way to share an ad hoc sentiment, let's say, or a quick note. We have the same thing that we sell as Spokenote. And Spokenote is very simply a small sticker that has a QR code on it. And what you do is you scan that code. You're prompted by the website. It's a web app. There's no download, no registration, to record a video. Once you publish that video, you can re-record it many times if you don't like your take, right? But once you click publish, it is then linked permanently to that sticker. You peel the sticker off, and if you want to put that on the inside of a book, on a remote control at your rental Airbnb, on your HVAC unit if you are a service technician to show someone how to change their new air filter, on their new unit. There are a number of use cases where people need to create and share instant video, and that's what we provide.
How did the idea for Spokenote came about, and what attracted you to do this?
Yeah, so it's a kind of a pretty cool convergence of a couple of things. First of all, I started a business called Wish You a number of years ago, 22 years ago. And Wish You was focused on capturing memories at live events on behalf of brands. So Coca-Cola, American Express, GM, Snickers, you name it. I mean, we represented most of the large brands that do sponsorships in North America, and we would capture digital video, digital photo, and data for these brands in order to connect with the consumers. And so I did that. That company started 22 years ago, and it was based on a business plan that I wrote when I was a junior in Maastricht in the Netherlands on an IU overseas studies program. To give you an idea, no internet, no digital imaging, none of the core technologies that existed today. And I was drawing lightning bolts and clouds and arrows to connect things in this concept. And about 5 years later, as the browser started to emerge, I took note and started to tinker a little bit more with how I could use the internet as a transport mechanism to move digital video and digital photos around. Then Kodak came out with the DC-10, which was the kind of the first of the mainstream digital cameras. And I bought one. It was $1,000. They affectionately called it the brick internally inside at Kodak. And a friend of mine was their VP of marketing. Years later, we met, and he said this brick was kind of a seminal moment in digital photography. And that was the gateway into me understanding how we could use digital memories to connect people. And so I feel like I have invested 10,000 hours of my life in the Malcolm Gladwell parlance to become an expert in connecting people with digital assets. Well, you rewind my clock from today, about a year and a half ago, I was sitting with a good friend of mine having coffee, and he was telling me about an idea that he had, and he wanted to send videos to his brother many years ago that was serving overseas in the military. And he wanted to put a QR code in there and have that link to a video, and he would explain this vision to me. And I told him, I'm surprised that doesn't exist, but let me check into it. And so I did that weekend, and within a few days of that point, I had written a base prototype. I use that in very like air quote terminology. I hacked together using all kinds of off-the-shelf technology, Google Drive, flow code, different ways to kind of make this initial product, and I demonstrated it. And I showed it to a few people, and everybody liked it, including my friend that was the original idea source. I asked him if he wanted me to run with it, and he said he did. And so I literally booted up an effort to start building a type. We've had a couple of different versions of product, but we are at the point now where we've launched, and we're really starting to see traction with consumers buying the product all over the country.
Now, are you the sole owner, or do you have partners in this
I
venture?
am I'm a majority owner, and I am a veteran also. So I'm proud to say that we are a veteran-owned Indiana enterprise. But we have employee ownership, we have investors, and we are funding this and growing it like you would any other traditional high growth, kind of venture backed company. So we're going to be on that path.
Give us one or two more practical examples of how Spokenote could be used, maybe personal lives and maybe in the business world.
Yeah. So on the personal front, we see it very commonly used for thank you notes, cards, letters. I'll tell you, when my mother comes to my house to dog sit, we talked about before we got started. We're all dog people. I leave Spokenote messages for her all over the house with dog food and how to work the remotes, and a special make her cookies and put a note on the cookies thanking her. And we just use them all over the house as just a way to make a connection and have some fun. So that would be a personal use. On the business side, in fact, we just recently launched a new product that is a postcard note card stationery product. Allows the brand to totally control this side of the card, right? The hero graphic side we talk about. And then on the opposite side, you can write a brief note, and then each code that's on the card is unique. So you can record a thank you video. You can do just about anything. We're also seeing them on business cards. We started using them for our business cards. So when you look at all of the industries where it's difficult for the sales rep to get past the front door, especially medical, med device, pharma, increasingly it's difficult for them to get in the door to talk to someone. They can record a quick video, leave their business card with a box of donuts or something that they want to drop off for the staff or the team, and it's another way to try to get your message across. So the other thing is we have added a PIN code capability so that for medical, mental health, legal, accounting, any places where you would need privacy, you can put a 4-digit PIN on the video, and then the person that scans the code needs the PIN to unlock the video. So it gives a level of privacy that would give people comfort in sharing personal information.
John, I was having a little bit of difficulty following you on how Spokenote came together, the technology. First of all, is it proprietary software, or is it kind of a putting together of different off-the-shelf products, and were you the tech brains behind it?
I built the first prototype or the concept using off-the-shelf stuff, and then we have custom written everything in Spokenote today. So it resides in the Amazon cloud, and it's all custom code that does specific features. And I am not, thankfully, the technical mind behind this. I'm the disruptive entrepreneur that knows enough to be dangerous. And then if the mark of a real good CEO is they surround themselves with people smarter than them, I'm a really good CEO. So we've got a lot of bright people on the team. Currently, we're 9 people, and many with venture-backed experience, multiple public companies and IPOs. And so you look at the team that's involved here, and I just couldn't be more excited about the capability and the talent within our team.
John, how original is Spokenote, and how has it been embraced so far?
It's unquestionably one of the it's really the most exciting startup I've ever been involved with, because it's so simple, right? The thing that I love is people are almost incredulous that they didn't think of it or that it's not out there. They're like, what? A QR code and video streaming? And there really isn't anything that begins to approach where we're headed with this. So we have some other software capability and some other really incredible items that we're going to be introducing over the next year and a half. And I can tell you they are really really game changing when you look at what we're going to bring to the market. So our first product, people finish our sentences. When I show the sticker to them and they go, "Oh, I could use it for this," and they immediately start thinking of use cases and how they might use it. To me, that's the mark of a really good product.
For those who don't know John or aren't as familiar with John as maybe we are, or haven't looked at his LinkedIn page recently, John is a serial entrepreneur. I'm not talking about Cheerios and Frosted Flakes here. He has been involved in many, many startups. And before we came on the air, John, you were talking about the challenges of starting Spokenote and the time you put into it and the relationship to dog year. So kind of walk us through what it's been like to launch Spokenote.
Oh, yeah. So I mean, the idea behind that comment was that I've been in large companies. I started my career at IBM, and it's IBM was and still is a fantastic company. It's a very different company today, but the pace is a little different in the corporate world, let's call it. And the expectations are different, and I don't want to say they go slower, but they kind of do, right? There's a rigor with decision making, and it's almost like in a large company, everybody's empowered to say no, but no one's empowered to say yes, if that makes sense. So like these giant trap doors you have to keep going through, and anyone anytime can kill a project, but no one can spring it. In entrepreneurial companies, it's almost the opposite, right? Where we have to be careful that we don't spring a product too early, or we don't things just move so quickly. And so I think, and the value creation curve, when you look at a startup, when you look at what happens from an idea stage through to a series A, series B, the amount of value that's added to the world economically and utility with the product, there is just so much that happens that I equate those to almost dog years to work years in a corporate world. And I've always said that people that work with me in a startup, 3 years is like a career at GE, where 3 years gets you 21 on your dog year scale, and you feel like it. You're like, man, I'm a grizzled veteran after 3 years in a startup. And that to me is the thing that I love, is our ability to not only move, make progress, get stuff done, but then also bring others along. I'd love to bring high school, college, young, fresh out, entrepreneurial interested students or recent grads, and turn them loose in this environment, because they absolutely grow so fast that it's just an exciting part of life to see these companies do what they do.
Speaking of bringing things along, entrepreneurs, of course, are always interested in business models and the path to profitability. So shed some light on us about Spokenote, how it's funded, and what the path to profitability looks like.
Yeah, so the challenge with a company like this, first of all, is in answering the question in a way that we're not going to expose our business model, because that is the proprietary kind of novel part of this. But some of the higher points that I can tell you about um, uh, focus on a software platform that will essentially become a utility for serving the world with this, right? So once you've built that, it's like building a bridge. The first car over the bridge is going to cost you a lot of money, right? It costs you $4 million to get over the Ohio River, right? For car number one. Car number two, not so much. And car number 100,000, you amortize that infrastructure cost across a whole lot of cars. It's the same thing with Spokenote. And so when you look at our path to profitability on a gross profit individual unit basis, with the infrastructure built, we're already there, right? So you can show profitability on an individual item, but there's an ongoing infrastructure cost to build and maintain that we have to amortize. And so, really, at the end of the day, it's products like our added note card, it's ongoing sticker sales, and then other software elements that are in our pipeline that will make this perform better than most companies, and at a product level and an overall net level, the business model is extraordinarily strong. So I'm super excited about the combination of a SaaS model with a consumer product, and I really think we have a unique opportunity here.
Dumb it down for me a little bit, John. Are you guys venture backed, and how much money have you raised? How much money have you put into it personally?
Yeah, so we're angel backed, and we're likely to stay that way. And really good angels, by the way. Probably will be through our next round, and then from there, it remains to be seen whether we end up going with a strategic investor or private equity or something like that. There are two commas on the cap table from angel investors, into the company. So we've raised a decent amount of money, but we're on our way to doing more of that. And the rules on that. You can't really talk about a lot of it when you're doing it. But we're there's ample appetite for our needs, and I think we're well on our way to seeing our path to not only how we're funded, but how we perform at a very high level as a business post funding.
It seems like to me that Spokenote is a very different type of operation than the IoT Lab and Launch Fishers. So how different is it running what looks like to me a for-profit consumer-facing operation like Spokenote, as opposed to this business to business and really kind of a community service operation like IoT Lab and or Launch Fishers?
Well, so I mean that ought to give you a little hint as to how we managed Launch Fishers and IoT Lab and the Fishers Test Kitchen, right? While they are 501c3 organizations, the mentality of the team and the way I chose to grow those organizations was the same as I would grow a high growth, startup. And I that is one fallacy I believe in the nonprofit world, that people think because they're a nonprofit they have to operate in ways that are any different than a high tech, scrappy startup. I think the best nonprofits, quite frankly, operate like startups.
How much does a Spokenote or a package of Spokenotes cost?
$10 for 10, so it's $9.99 for a pack of 10. Currently, we sell buy two get one free, so that knocks your cost down to about 67 cents, I guess, a sticker or something like that. And so, yeah.
You talked earlier, John, about sort of what it takes and what it takes out of you and the thrill as well of starting a company. I was curious, is there anything sort of inherent this time around based on sort of like the unique climate that we may be in right now? Is there anything different that you found out this go round?
I don't think there's anything different related to the climate. I would say that, maybe where I am in my season as an entrepreneur, right? This time around, I have a different cadence and a different pace. I'm okay, kind of letting it come to me a little bit. I think I was always prone as an entrepreneur over my first few ventures to really kind of force the action a little bit, sometime even to my own detriment. And whether that was out of excitement, we refer to it now internally as tactical exuberance. I've been able to kind of manage that a little bit, and I feel super comfortable and at peace with how this team has come together and where we are. It's really probably the first time ever that I felt that way, and so I'm really enjoying my role as a little more of the seasoned entrepreneur with a little better cadence and pace. And I'm super excited about what the future holds. And we're currently 9. I think we're going to double probably in the next handful of months. Really, by the end of the year, we should be 15 of us, and then from there, the company really starts to take off. So very excited.
I know it's probably way too early to tell, but do you sort of see Spoke Note as your maybe swan song in the entrepreneurial world, or do you have many other ideas for startups that are percolating, especially consumer facing ones?
I definitely have ideas, right? I might keep a list actually of things that I would like to dabble in. I will tell you that I have pretty much peeled everything off of my schedule that's not focused on Spokenote, including sadly having to step off of a couple of boards and different initiatives that I really love. I will support them ongoing, but I want to focus on making Spokenote the very best that it can be. As for Swan Song, I don't know. I said this might be, this is my one last big one. There is, at a certain point, a moment in life where you say, wow, we're running awfully fast and awfully hard. I see a stage in my life after Spokenote that would likely be more of an advisor, continued investor. I do stuff right now with my friends at Round One Capital, with Gary Rush, Jay Love, Scott Brenton, core group of guys. We love looking at investing in startups, advising, consulting. I think I'm always going to do that. But as far as like throwing my hat in the ring as the CEO of a venture, my hope is that I can continue to develop talent around me and give them a chance to do that next and just coach them along their journey. So I think we're going to have a great time with this. I can't tell you if it's 2 years or 5 years. I don't think it's 10 years, but there is a window in this startup stage that as we start to hit scale, there may be a time where this isn't the company that I should run, right? I mean, I'm also self-aware enough to know that there are times where you bring in professional management and I can still have my influence on the company, but I don't necessarily even need to run it. So and that's for first time probably in my life that I've ever been comfortable even admitting that. But I think that could also come to pass at some point. So, I'm super excited with where we are. Great opportunity. I'm super appreciative of the support of everyone, including the state chamber. You look around the community of people that I've worked with over the years, and to see them all kind of support and embrace Spokenote. And I would love all of us to make this our success. This is not about me. It's not about Spokenote, but I think that this is an opportunity for us to give birth to a product that can become known as born out of Indiana, right? When you look at things like Angie's List or Exact Target, interactive intelligence, software artistry, these companies that when you go outside of our area and people go, oh, Angie's List is from Indianapolis. I think that our area, we have a unique opportunity right now with companies like Spokenote. You look at Vibenomics or Amplify or some of these other companies, we are getting known as a place where these kinds of companies are born. And I want Spokenote to be included in that long list of successes.
You mentioned earlier, I think, how someone was like almost surprised they didn't think of this, or someone hasn't thought of this idea first, because it seems like such the natural step in our technology. That lends itself to, it seems like the sky's the limit for Spokenote.
You are correct, and at the same time, that is our potentially biggest pitfall, because that can translate to a lack of focus. And so inside of the company, we have this hashtag focus mantra, and I literally have it hanging on the wall in acrylic laser cutout posts, all in different places, and we have sayings like, the owl that chases two rabbits catches neither, or things like that, that we have to focus on our target, go after it, and then we go focus on the next one. But if we try to chase all of this opportunity, I was with a well-known Hoosier, incredible entrepreneur, who told me you can drown in a sea of opportunity. And so we have to focus on the thing that we want to accomplish. Once we've done that, then we go forward and get the next one. And so it's we know we're blessed with an incredible opportunity, but we have to play that hand well in order to win.
John, thank you again for the conversation. We really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me. And again, thank you to the Chamber for your ongoing support. Super excited for what lies ahead for all of us.
Great. In Chamber is presented by the Talent Resource Navigator. The new edition of BizVoice magazine explores Indiana's innovation scene. Read about some of the state's most successful entrepreneurial ventures and the people behind them, as well as the programs and policies spurring the activity. Go to bizvoicemagazine.com. As always, thank you for listening.